legal demands without evidence, you could be charged with obstructing justice. You'll face prison time. Even the judge reminded him, the courtroom is sacred. Everyone must take responsibility for what they say. But the young man stood firm. After the plaintiff stated his claims, it was the defendant's turn to respond and submit their counterclaims. The bank's lawyer spoke. First, the young man's accusations against the bank should be entirely dismissed, and he called for harsh punishment for such malicious behavior. Second, the verdicts from the first and second trials should be upheld. Third, the young man had damaged the bank's reputation and should pay $1 million in compensation. Online, discussions exploded again. Some said, ordinary people can't possibly win a lawsuit against a bank. Others said, the kid's finished now. He couldn't save his dad and might end up ruining himself too. In court, it was time for the young man to present his legal evidence. He said, before submitting legal facts and grounds, I'd like to request that the defendant recount what happened on the day of the incident. The judge approved the request. The young man's father began to recall the scene. At the time, my son was hospitalized and waiting for surgery. I went to the bank to withdraw money, but the savings account was under his name. The bank staff said he had to come in person to withdraw it. I explained that my son was in the hospital awaiting surgery and handed them a critical condition notice, begging them to make an exception so I could save my son's life. But the staff told me to prove he was my son, so I handed over the household registration booklet, showing our father-son relationship. Still, they said that wasn't acceptable proof. Other customers at the bank began pleading on his behalf, saying, this is life-saving money. How can you not let him take it out? But the staff snapped back impatiently, bank money isn't that easy to get. The father, desperate, said, this money is clearly mine. How did it become the bank's? But the staff insisted, either your son comes in person, or you find a better way to prove he's your son. Frustrated, the father shouted, he's lying in the hospital waiting for surgery. How can he come? Just then, armed robbers stormed into the bank. They wore masks and held guns, forcing everyone to stuff money into their bags. When the robbers were about to leave, one of them noticed the father crying. He yelled, what are you crying for? You're a grown man. The father sobbed and said, my son's in the hospital, and I need money to save his life. The robber looked at him and suddenly felt sympathy. He pulled some cash out of his bag and tossed it to the father. The father didn't dare accept it, but the robber pointed a gun at him and cursed, pathetic. Just then, the hospital called, urging the father to pay the surgery fee. Panicked, he grabbed the money and ran back. Because of this, the bank accused him of being an accomplice in the robbery and took him to court. After his father finished, the young man addressed the court. In the original trial, the court ruled that my father knew the money came from a robbery and still took it. They decided this proved he